How many times have you heard the phrase work-life balance? It's everywhere, isn't it? What does it actually mean? And is there a formula that we can use to get work-life balance? Because it's not just about managing your digital distractions, nor is it about just being able to close your laptop at designated hour and switch off completely or leave the office exactly on the dot. Yes, those things might be indicators of balance. And yes, for my high achievers, these are some of the most challenging parts. That's why I do the August rejuvenation on the podcast. I see some of the things that are discussed when it comes to work-life balance as the kind of real surface level, the tip of the iceberg stuff. But actually, we need those much deeper fundamental foundational things in place. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. What I want to talk you through today is what those real building blocks of work-life balance are. So it might seem like just something that you achieve every now and then on a good week. Actually, you can build systems, habits, and mindset shifts that support you to be ambitious in both life and work. And I go through these in a specific order for a reason. Each one builds on the last. I have worked with so many leaders now, and often they'll come with some of the stuff in place, but it's not working because they haven't addressed the underlying pieces. For example, people will say, okay, look, I need better boundaries. But if you don't have the support and scaffolding to support your life and work, then it can be hard to have the right boundaries in place because who's going to do it ultimately? Likewise, if you don't have your planning system dialed in and that vision that overarches it, then how are you going to know what to say yes to and what to say no to? If you've ever thought to yourself, I want to take that next step, but something's got to give and I'm scared that it's me that's got to give. And I do hear people saying this, that the person that suffers is themselves, right? They lose out. Then this episode is for you. This is about having a systematic approach that we build over time that generates that work-life balance. So let's kick off. And this is where I start clients inside the Life Work Design program. We dig into what you mean by success and having it all, not what you've inherited from your workspace, not your upbringing, not your culture. What does it mean to you to have it all? Because we're not trying to cram it all in everybody's expectations. It's about having the right things. And I say having and not doing, right? Because I don't want you doing it all. I want you to be able to let go of the stuff that doesn't matter. And I also want you to be able to cleverly gather the right support. The other really important thing right up front is the concept of slow productivity by Cal Newport. And I put this right up here with defining what having it all means, because we can have that full and rich vision, but to then address each of the areas, we really want to take a slow productivity approach, which means we want long time frames, which is the beauty of having a 10-year vision, right? We want long time frames, and wherever possible, we want to work on one thing at a time. I dig into this a lot in the program because obviously when you first hear that, you go, gosh, what a luxury, right? To be able to work on just one thing at a time. I have so many things, so many balls to juggle. And so what I do there is I break down how you can make that work for you inside an organization, in your home life, in a way that helps you to start to work on some of those big building blocks of what you want to achieve. And let me give you the straight up comparison. Think of two different people. They both have 5 major goals that will set them up for their vision. One of them chooses to take each at a time, and only once they've broken the back of that would they consider taking on the next project. Now compare that to somebody else with exactly the same goals who says, I'm just going to start everything moving at the same time. They're going to be more scattered. They're going to have way more admin because, as Cal Newport says, all work carries overhead. So you start a project, you'll have meetings, you'll have follow-up, you have emails. So if you have so much of that admin on top of the actual main core part of the project, of course, you're going to move more slowly on each one. So you actually move much faster in the long term, but you're also much less stressed when you focus on one thing at a time. The next bit is you need a system that reflects your real life, a planning system. And I know people have different views when it comes to planning. I'm actually not the most, yes, I love to plan, but I'm not one of these highly organized people. But I do have a good planning system that works for those of us who are perhaps a bit lazier, shall we put it that way. And it starts obviously from the big vision, and then it breaks it down into that 3-year path, but then ultimately the 1-year horizon is a really good one to work with. And I then like to go from that 1 year to quarterly to monthly to weekly to daily. And I have a system for each individual day and how to have a watertight system, as Laura Vanderkam and Sarah Hart Unger describe it. Something that catches the balls that can be dropped, but ultimately that keeps the eye on the ball, which is the needle moving work. So just going back to the beginning, we've defined what success looks like to us. And we also have a way of approaching our goals that is a slow productivity way. This is what creates spaciousness in our lives. This is what allows us to advance purposefully towards our goals, but not in a way that's scattered and overworky. The next one is that we have a planning system that reflects our real life. And you heard me talk about to-do lists in the past. These are a huge part of your planning system, because by reflecting back each period, we then get to celebrate and build on confidence and momentum, which is actually a huge component here. The next bit I want to talk about is designing your ideal week, because people will say, I don't have boundaries, I don't know how to push back, or I'm overworking. But yet they don't actually know what their ideal week would look like. They don't know from a blank sheet of paper what they would love to see. And I say that if you can wake up and look at your calendar for the week ahead and it can excite you and fill you with joy, and you don't feel panic as you look at it, then you're winning. So we spend time designing your ideal week. Now, of course, there are going to be some key building blocks, and we think about where they could most strategically go. Exercise, deep work time, core vision building time. But then, of course, we layer in your real obligations as well. And you won't believe what a difference it makes once you've got that idealized calendar in front of you. It creates such a gravitational pull that really can create a shift in the way that your weeks feel. And once again, I have highly organized clients, but I haven't met one yet whose calendar we haven't successfully managed to redesign. This has completely transformed their experience of their working week. To remind us where we started, we define what success means to us, then we have our planning system that allows us to keep referring back to what that success looks like, but it takes us to the granularity of our days, because if we're not planning our days, we're not planning our weeks, then other people are going to do it for us. Then we design our ideal week. Yeah, so this is a very systematic approach, and we're starting with the stuff that we want to lead with. We're starting proactively. Now, the next bit is, now that you've got a sense of all of that, you're in the perfect position to think about what support you need. And support is basically the way that you can keep dialing up your ambition without dialing up your workload. Certainly, I know, having leaned into an amazing team now, that I am working less than ever, and I see consistent progress in the business in a way that I never could before. Before, it relied entirely on my own motivation. And obviously that's a personal example, but we all have versions of this. We can find ways to outsource. We can have the right planning conversations with others that we have shared goals with, including our partners, and we can make sure that we're carrying the loads that we need to be carrying, and we're not carrying other people's loads for them. And that's why you need an intervention from somebody who wants to look at, who wants the best for you, rather than somebody who's benefiting from everything that you're doing. Okay, the next bit, now we're ready for mindset, because mindset comes up a lot, comes up quite early. Confidence, imposter syndrome, scarcity mindset, fear of letting people down, perfectionism. This is all the stuff that keeps you over functioning long after it's useful. And we need to get those things right, build in more of an abundance mindset. Only once we have all of that other scaffolding in place, we know what success looks like. We know how to do our planning. We know that we're taking wherever possible, one major project at a time, whenever we have the choice. We know how to plan from that high level to the day. We have designed our ideal week. We have figured out what support we need, whether that is childcare, emotional, mental load help, logistics, or specific stuff at work. And then finally, we're looking at mindset, right? Because we've got all that stuff that we actually need to support us. I just think it's really harsh to take a really high functioning mother, for example, who's carrying all that mental load with no support and then tell her you've got a mindset issue. It kind of does my head in, actually, right? I want to make sure that the real stuff is in place, the proper scaffolding is in place before we start working on you and trying to fix your mindset issues, right? I want to make sure that you've got the real stuff that helps with work-life balance. Now, with all that mindset stuff, now you're in the right position to do boundary work. So boundaries is a commonly used term now. People say, I've got no boundaries. But actually putting boundaries into place, the process of doing this is something that needs to be sort of delved into one further layer. And the way that I do this is looking at different communication styles. So do you have more of a passive style? Do you have more of an aggressive style? Or are you in the middle with an assertive communication style? Assertive communication styles are about being able to express your needs, understand the needs of others, but then not needing to, for example, over-explain, not needing to over-justify and open up the door then for people to criticize your reasons and your rationale. So understanding what different forms of communication people are using inside an organization, and therefore what you need to be able to use to be able to ask for what you want, is really important. And actually, I've said an organization because obviously that's where I do a lot of my work, but this applies outside as well. It implies to the partnerships that we have outside work, and really making sure that those are as supportive as possible. What we want is, we don't want guilt-inducing conversations. We want to be able to ask for what we want. If you're having the repeated problem, then you need to provide a set of options to say, look, this is what we keep coming up against. Here are the options going forward. Which one would you like to take? So that's an example of how boundaries actually work in practice, because what I see happening a lot right now is that people understand the idea of boundaries, but when it comes to the trickiest boundaries that need enforcing and that are going to really yield the big results, they're not necessarily able to do that or understanding where they can have that kind of conversation. The final bit is having the conversations, the needle moving conversations that you really need to be able to have, whether that's with your boss, your partner, your team, or just yourself. So helping you to prep for those and manage those. Sometimes those can be emotional. So how do you do those in a way that allows for genuine emotion to be there and not trying to repress it and put on a mask, poker face, but at the same time moves things forward for you in a constructive way. The amount of time that we can save by having some of these difficult conversations, I think, is always underestimated. When you're putting off having certain conversations, you might think, I can work around it. I'm cool. I don't need to worry about this. Actually, it starts to cost you in time and energy. You can only do what's in your control. If it's met with aggression or defensiveness, that is the other person's response. That's their stuff. So if work-life balance has previously felt a little bit vague or a bit unrealistic or requiring too many trade-offs, I hope this has given you a more systematic way of thinking about this. You can keep building this stuff up and reinforcing it and embedding it. It's tangible building blocks that when they come together, that's when the difference is massive. I had an amazing client who worked in private equity, and the thing that we had to sort out was her childcare. She's now CEO of a really successful private equity firm, but sorting out her childcare was actually the thing that was needed for her to be able to move forward. We do this work inside my life work design program. I will put the link in the show notes, and I look forward to connecting with you next time. And here's to better work-life balance built one block at a time.